I hope this reaches the right person at the right time. I have a court date scheduled for March 15 in Eagle Pass, Texas. I've been charged with 6 counts of smuggling immigrants. I understand that I must take accountability for being in the wrong place at the wrong time with an individual I should have never known. I served in the federal government under the Department of Housing and Urban Development (HUD) in Houston for over 11 years before being laid off due to the department's mishandling of funds during Hurricane Harvey. I am a single mother of 3 children and have supported them without government assistance until now. I am requesting a pardon from the United States of America so I can restart my life. I have endured trauma and PTSD from this experience. I was in a car with someone who was working with the cartel, and at the time, I was unaware of his involvement. He told me he needed to pick up construction workers from out of town and bring them back to Houston. He also asked to borrow my rifle. I was hesitant, so I decided to go with him. I was nervous because his vehicle registration was expired. We traveled 5.5 hours from Atascocita, Texas, to Eagle Pass. Upon arrival, the person he was working with texted him, saying they weren't finished with their work and needed another day. They sent him money via Cash App for a hotel. We stayed in the only hotel with available rooms. The next morning, we drove 15 minutes to pick up individuals from a house in an alley. As we pulled up, I saw a Border Patrol truck for the first time in my life. I have lived in Houston for 39 years and had never seen one before. The officers said they were just in the area. The driver decided to keep going. As we were leaving to return to Houston, a state trooper made a U-turn and pulled us over. The driver informed the trooper that there were weapons in the vehicle. The trooper immediately took the driver and placed him in his vehicle. I was left in the car with the 6 individuals we had picked up. The trooper then notified the Border Patrol, who arrived shortly after. A Border Patrol officer asked the passengers in Spanish if they had legal documents, and they all agreed that they did. However, when he questioned one individual further, that person jumped out of the back door and ran over a fence. The officer attempted to chase him but couldn't catch up. The Border Patrol officer then ran back to the car, pointed his gun in my face, and screamed, "You effing knew." I repeatedly told him, "No, sir, I did not know what was going on." I was terrified. I thought he was going to kill me. He continued screaming at me, demanding to know where the gun was. I told him that the driver had loaded the car before I got in, and I didn't know where he had placed the weapon. As I had my hands up, I told him that I was a US citizen and that I would comply with anything he needed. Despite this, they pulled me out of the car, threw all my personal belongings into the dirt, and treated me like a criminal. I explained that I am a mother of 3 teenagers, one who has a full scholarship to Texas A&M, another who is about to graduate, and one who is starting high school. Later, I found out that both the driver and the state trooper were working with the cartel. The driver was arrested but was allowed to call his children to tell them he would be gone for a while. Meanwhile, I was denied the ability to contact my children to let them know I wouldn't be picking them up from school. While we were being transported, the officer allowed us to use our phones. I sent all the money I had in my account to my daughter so she could eat and take care of her brothers. The driver used his call to make sure he would receive bail. One of the state troopers transporting us said, "I'm going to stop at the store to get us a cake and a Coke because it's going to be a while before you eat. Just take the probation, don't go to trial." He said this because he had gone through the same charges with his son. After eating and making our calls, we were taken to a facility just 3 streets away from the store. The next day, we went to court. It was cold and raining, and I started shivering. The judge issued a $5,150 hold, a psychiatric evaluation hold, and I was shackled for 24 hours before being transported for 3 hours. As a result, my right wrist now has a bone sticking out. The driver was already out on bond and released. I, however, was transferred to another facility and stayed there for 4 days because my family could not post bond in time. Now, my public defender is pressuring me to take a plea deal instead of going to trial. She told me that Kinney County is an all-white county and that the jury would convict me based solely on my race and the fact that I am a woman. She said that simply being present is enough for an automatic guilty verdict. Instead of facing up to 20 years, she wants me to accept 4 years of probation. She also told me that if I expose the involvement of one of their county-hired troopers, it will not help my case. I have not been shown any evidence to justify this 4-year probation deal. My public defender says I must meet with her to see the evidence, but she insists I should focus on taking the plea deal. I suspect she does not want me to file a complaint against the officer. I have lived in the United States for 39 years and have never been in trouble before. The closest I have ever come to a legal issue was a citation for an expired registration while taking my kids to school or driving to work. This is the most traumatic experience of my life, and I am begging the United States for help. Thank you, Crystal Slaughter.